Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the One Talk podcast. Here with your host, Ryan McCarthy. And today we are joined by Dr. Daniel Kirkbride. Daniel is a doctor of osteopathic medicine who turned his personal battle with chronic fatigue and dissatisfaction with the conventional medical system into a mission to find natural, effective solutions. His journey led him to functional medicine, where he discovered how to heal himself by addressing the root cause of his chronic health issues. Driven by his experience, he is dedicated to helping those with chronic health concerns, seeking long-term natural solutions, as well as high achievers looking to optimize their health and enhance their performance. He has guided thousands of individuals struggling with chronic health issues to lasting wellness through his holistic root cause-based approach. And in today's episode, we break down all of Daniel's work and also touch on osteopathic medicine and what it is, and also functional medicine and his approach to it as well. We break down vitamin deficiencies, we break down water that we should be drinking, testosterone levels, and so much more. There's so much value in today's episode, and I can't wait for you all to dive in. In other news, if you could please leave this podcast a rating, it means so much in terms of helping this podcast grow and reaching a larger audience. So if you're on Spotify or Apple, leave a rating and follow. If you're on YouTube, if you could subscribe, leave a thumbs up, it would mean so much. But without further ado, let's welcome.
Thank y'all. Thank y'all. The marathon continue. Victory lap tonight, though. Victory lap tonight.
Welcome to the One Talk podcast with Ryan McCarthy.
The marathon continues. That's what you were saying.
Welcome to the One Talk podcast, Dr. Dan. How are you, man?
Good, mate. Thanks for having me.
No worries at all. Thanks for coming on, man. I was saying to you before today's episode that I've recently, about a year or two ago, I did an episode with a lady called Kit Tomlinson. And that episode went absolutely bananas. And it just shows that people are looking for information around health and overall well-being and improving themselves in terms of the way they feel and maybe their longevity and wellness in life. So I'm really keen for today's episode, man, just to get into the work that you do and get a bit of a deep dive on some of the things that we can get into.
Yeah, man, exciting. It's been a massive demand for it, especially the last few years after the, what we can't talk about. I think everyone's a bit more just and wanting to get a little bit more information for himself. So yeah, hopefully we can provide some value today.
100%, man, because I really want to start with, like, what is functional medicine?
Yeah, so I mean, the easy definition would be think of it as preventative medicine or proactive medicine. So I think when you look at conventional medicine, i.e., the medical system, mainly the medical system is designed to keep you alive. It's designed to manage disease and essentially, stop you from dying in serious situations. So, if you already had a chronic disease, you had something like cancer, you had something like you got hit by a bus on the weekend, you severed a leg, something like that, obviously, conventional medicine is going to be your favorite thing. It's going to be really, really great at keeping you alive in serious situations. But where conventional medicine generally falls short is preventative medicine, in the sense of, well, if we can pick up on things 20, 30 years earlier in terms of some of these chronic diseases, inflammatory diseases, chronic health conditions, then we'd be able to prevent a lot of these things happening in the first place. So that's sort of where functional medicine comes into it, where we look at the body holistically, we look at how the body functions and how all the systems communicate and connect. And we use various tests, could be blood tests, could be stool tests, DNA tests, obviously just speaking to people and asking them the right questions to try and determine how that person's body's functioning, what deficiencies or limitations they may have, and try and deal with those limitations early so that we can prevent some of those things becoming more sinister down the track. So an easy example to put it in perspective for people listening would be, a lot of people I deal with might have issues with bloating or poor energy or brain fog. And it might seem quite, non-sinister when you first look at it, but if you leave bloating too long, bloating can become, leaky gut can become, IBS can become inflammatory bowel disease can become Crohn's disease can become cancer, bowel cancer. So if we look at that sort of timeline there, it's like if we could pick up on that early with a blood test when someone has bloating and deal with the underlying cause of that bloating. Was it food sensitivity, or, was it SIBO or something like this, we could prevent that happening 10, 20 years down the track. So yeah, that's the basis of functional medicine, really, is trying to pick up and detect how people are functioning early on, and increase lifespan, increase longevity, and prevent disease from happening in the first place.
Mm. That's awesome, man, because it shows that it always starts from somewhere. It's like it happens overnight. Like it can be a buildup of maybe neglect on certain things that just that constantly become this thing that becomes very exaggerated in the body and maybe attacks the system. So I think it's just
Mm.
as important to maybe if you don't feel like unhealthy, quote unquote, to still get
Mhm.
tests done. Like, do you agree with that? Like to still get your blood work done to see how things are ticking, even if you do feel quote healthy.
Yeah, for sure. I think an easy analogy I use, which kind of backs up, the explanation of functional medicine, is like, imagine you're driving your car and, you're driving on the freeway and your red light starts flashing saying, check your engine light. At that point, your car isn't broken down, but obviously there's something not right. And you have two options at that point. You either pull over and you pop the hood and you investigate and you see what's going on. And it might need an oil change or something simple. You fix it, you keep driving. Or option two is you ignore it, you throw a T-tail over it, you keep driving, you get to your destination, and if you keep ignoring it for a long enough period of time, eventually your car breaks down. You got to go to the mechanic, and it costs you thousands of dollars. It's kind of the same with that body. If you have these early symptoms, these what I call whispers, like bloating, food sensitivities, brain fog, low energy, that's a good time. That's essentially your red light flashing. That's a good time to pull over. You go see a functional medicine practitioner or a really good holistic GP, get your blood test done, which is like popping the hood, investigating, saying, oh, maybe it's just a few little things we can work on, change your supplements, change your diet. And, it's a pretty simple fix, and we keep driving. But unfortunately, most people kind of ignore those symptoms, and then they become more sinister down the track. So yeah, I think for sure, if you don't have any issues, we don't want to wait till you have an issue, because that's the whole purpose of functional medicine, is like, we're not just going, wait until you have a disease or you have some problem and then come see me. Ideally, you should be getting your blood test done at a bare minimum once every 12 months. I always tell my clients from a proactive point of view, I'd like to get it done once every 6 months. And then when I work with people who have a existing health concern, it's usually more frequently, like 3 months. And the only reason it's more frequently when you already have a condition is like anything. If you have a problem, you want to know if the intervention is working or not. So, if I had a gym program, I don't just do a gym program for 6 months and hope for the best. I do a gym program, and at the end of every 4 to 6 week block, I review, see how things are progressing, make adjustments. So it's kind of the same thing. It's like, when you're in that early phases, you might want to do a blood test every sort of 12 to 16 weeks. Once you then get to a level of, I guess, what's optimal for you, then, a maintenance blood test once every 6 to 12 months is a good checkpoint. Just like getting your
100%.
car serviced every 10,000 Ks.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. That makes sense because, like, sometimes we can be prescribed things, but then continue taking them past the prescribed date because we're unaware of how long we're meant to take them for. I'll give an example just to provide more context to it. With myself, I started to get brain fog and I guess you could say symptoms of anxiety. So I went to the doctor and he was telling me, oh, maybe you have anxiety. Do you want to try this medication? But I was quite curious to get my blood work done just to see what was going on. And it turned
Mm,
out I was deficient in B12. So I started
mm.
supplementing B12. But then when I started supplementing B12 into my life, like, yes, it did cure those side effects, not the side effects, but like the things I was experiencing. But I was unsure on how long to even take B12 for. So I just kept taking it
Mm.
for like a year straight. And I started to think, am I overdoing it now? Like, is this going to cause another issue just because maybe I don't need B12 gummies anymore, but I'm still taking them?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, 100%. I always say to people, that's another reason why you want to do the follow-ups. But whenever you have a protocol, it should always be like this, the specific things you should get from a practitioner if you're going to see anyone, any practitioner, whether it's an osteo, a functional medicine practitioner, or a doctor. There should always be clarity around like what the dosage is, what the frequency is, what the timing is it with food, without food, once a day, twice a day? Is it for 3 weeks? Is it for 12 weeks? Is it forever? Is it until the next blood test? So I think they should always have clarity around that, because you're bang on. Like, I've had a lot of clients where there's a marker called MCV on a blood test, which is a really good indicator of B12 deficiency. And, you might have a client who's really, really out of whack, and you've got to go like super high dose with the B12. And if you do that super high dose for 90 days, we can get that back within a normal range, but then we want to come off it or go to a maintenance dose. If they kept going super high dose B12 just for the next 12 months, 18 months, well, then by taking high dose B12, you can then throw out B6 and B9, and then you have a different problem. So yeah, I think it's always, every intervention should always be a specific dosage, timing, specific reason, and you should always be retesting like anything. You want to do an assessment, you get the diagnosis, prescribe, the right supplement, the right meal plan, the right training program, and then after a certain period of time, there should be a reassessment. And that could be a blood test, could be symptoms, could be obviously depending on what the goal is. If it's body composition, could be weight, could be energy, all these different things that we use as assessment tools. There should always be assessment, intervention, reassessment. And then that way you have clarity on what the next steps are. And I always say to people, like, health is not a 6-month journey, it's a 50-year journey or 60-year journey. Yeah, for most people, by the time they come to see me, they're usually 30 or 25, 30. So it's like we got another 50, 60 years ahead of us. So it's not a 6 months and then stop. It's like, we're going to do this for 6 months, and in 6 months' time, let's retest. Where are things at? Cool, you've made awesome progress, but now we're going to do 1 or 2 other things. And if we just keep doing that every 6 months, we're constantly moving the needle forward, or at least maintaining it. We're not moving backwards.
Mhm. And do you feel like, let me know if this is true or not, but do you feel like it's using these supplements short term to be able to get to the body to function without the supplements eventually?
Yeah, for sure. Everything should be like, my goal is to get people to, obviously do things as naturally as possible. Even when it comes to supplementation, like trying to be as natural as possible in terms of, I guess, what I mean by natural is you've got natural supplements or supplementation, herbal supplementation, changes in nutrition. Like, nutrition's your best medicine. Yeah. If you're deficient in B12, there's, lots of foods out there where we can eat, which you can increase B12. So, the first option is always nutrition and changes in lifestyle. And then the second option would be supplementation, but looking at natural supplements. And then the third option is, we do have synthetic supplements, which, can be quite powerful, but, anything synthetic and, created in a lab is obviously not going to be as good as something natural. But when you have people that have really big deficiencies, my thought process is, well, it's kind of the lesser of two evils. It's like the synthetic supplement's not the best, but you living with anxiety and depression and low mood and low energy is probably worse than the trade-off of taking a synthetic supplement. So maybe for the first 90 days, we're going to use, the beauty of 2024 technology to try and boost you back to normal ranges. And then when you're in normal ranges, we can take the synthetic supplement away. And now we can just focus on, making sure you're eating enough red meat, you get enough B12 in your diet. If you're a vegan, you're supplementing with the right natural supplements to make up for the lack of, bioavailable B12 that you're getting in your diet. So always looking at it from a holistic lens, but there should always be an end date, and there should always be a reassessment to know when to come off supplements, equally as important as when to go on them. Because I'd say something common I see when people come to see me is they've got a shopping list. They feel like they're in form and they're taking 15 or 20 different supplements, and then that's a whole nother conversation, because then we've got supplement interaction, which is something people don't think about. Is taking more is not necessarily better. It's usually, I always have a rule of people should be taking 3 to 5 supplements max. If you're taking more than 3 to 5 supplements, then you're generally going to have potential interaction problems, and that's a whole nother story. So keeping it simple, less is more, be precise, do one thing at a time. Don't try and do everything in 3 months.
Yeah, there's 2 different things I want to break down from that. We'll touch back on the first point, because I really like your concept of, it seems like a way of like bridging the gap between the natural way to do it and also like the medical way to do it, which I find is really good, because I feel like some people can be too far on one side and too far on the other. Like exactly you said, like maybe we'll try this synthetic thing for 90 days to get you a push forward, so then we can start implementing the natural things to get you to a functional level.
Yeah, for sure. And like that comes from my own experience of I guess I didn't really share much at the start, but like long story short is back in 2020 I had my own issues with chronic health concerns, chronic fatigue, SIBO, parasites, candida, low thyroid function, low adrenal function. I had pretty much a shopping list of issues. And I went through this experience myself, which is how I kind of got into functional medicine. I was quite sick, quite fatigued. And as someone, I was 25 at the time, always been an athlete, business owner, high achiever. So for me to be able to, go from that to then not be able to get out of bed, not go to the gym, not run my business, COVID didn't help with the mental health either. So yeah, it was a bit of a shock to the system. And I went through the medical system, saw a bunch of doctors, your blood tests are normal, everything's fine. Went down the naturopath route, spent thousands of dollars in supplements, didn't really feel much better. And that sort of led me on the path I'm on today of like, well, how can we find a middle ground of, let's take the best of all different modalities and try and find something that's, actually useful and practical. So for me, going through that experience, what I came to realize is natural is really good. And obviously natural should be the gold standard, but I always think of it as like, there's baseline and then there's below baseline. If you're at baseline, and let's say magnesium, for example, a daily intake of magnesium is 50 milligrams per 10 kilos of body weight per day on average for people. So let's say I'm 100 kilos. That means I have to have, 500 milligrams of magnesium per day. Yeah. But if I was deficient, that doubles. Yeah, and that's 1,000 milligrams per day, 100 milligrams per 10 kilos of body weight. So it's like, if you were just trying to get your maintenance dosage, it's like that's probably achievable by just diet only because it's quite a low amount. But if you're now deficient in something or you have some sort of disease or inflammation in the body, which means your demand is higher, it's very, very hard to get that naturally. And that's where sometimes having the supplement is useful, where it's like, cool, I'm still going to try and increase magnesium in my diet, but maybe I'm also going to go and take some magnesium powder or some magnesium capsules to try and get me that extra boost. Because to get my magnesium from a below baseline level back to a baseline level, I don't just need to take my recommended daily intake. I need to take my recommended daily intake plus probably a significant amount more, because we're not talking about someone who's at baseline. We're talking about someone who's below baseline. So my goal as a practitioner is to get you from below baseline to maintenance as fast as possible. And that's where supplementation is really useful, because I'd rather you get there in 90 days than, 12 months. Because the faster you can start to feel better and get that energy boost, the more likely you are to stick to the program, stick to the protocol, and actually see out the entire process. So yeah, it's going to be a 12-month process, but if we can get you those results and those quick wins in the first 90 days, then it's going to be a much better outcome. And that's sort of what I experienced. It was like 6 months of just improving 1% and then going backwards 1%. And that's very, very demoralizing. So I wish someone had the time and just told me, take these things, just boost you, and then we can go down the natural route, because you can be sleeping, eating all the right foods, and you're still feeling like shit. And there's a lot of people out there who come to see me and they're doing all the right things on paper and they're still not really getting anywhere.
I feel like that's a great approach as well. And it's come from like your own experience to give you that wisdom to help people get those little wins at the starting point so they can have longevity in the goals that they are trying to obtain.
Yeah, it's like anything, man. Like my background was originally, strength and conditioning, powerlifting, bodybuilding. So I kind of think of it the same as building muscle. It's like building muscle is, really, really hard initially, but then it's kind of easy to maintain. Like you might have to train 6 days a week, and eat lots of food and train with really high intensity to build, 4 or 5 kilos of muscle over a 12-month period. And but when you've built that 4 or 5 kilos of muscle, maybe you can get away with training 3 days a week or 4 days a week and kind of eating at maintenance calories. Kind of the same thing. It's like that first initial trying to get healthy or trying to deal with the gut issues or the inflammation or the immune problems or whatever you're dealing with, that's bloody hard. But once we've dealt with it, then the maintenance is easy. And it's like, cool, now we don't really need supplements. Now we can just eat good food, drink good water, sleep, meditate, manage our stress, do the things that we need to. But if you're so deep in the hole, there's no amount of meditation and good food that's going to get you out of it.
Yeah, 100%. And I relate to that too, because when I first started going to the gym, like I was super skinny and I could only bench like the stick that you stretch with at the gym. But then after going there for years and eventually getting stronger, and a few years later, I started benching quite heavy. But then now, if I have like, a little bit of time off the gym, if I get injured, but then when I go back, like my muscle memory's there as well. So I've got like a really good baseline. I guess that
Yeah.
links into everything else you're saying, like with the internal health stuff too.
Yeah, for sure. Like when you have a higher, it's like anything. If you have a higher baseline, you can get away with more. Which it doesn't mean you should, but it means you're definitely going to bounce back a bit quicker from getting sick. Like we were talking about off air before about how everyone's getting sick lately, and I had gastro a few weeks ago, but even for me that was a horrendous 3 days. But every person I speak to who seems to have caught that bug seems to have gotten sick for 10 days to 14 days on average. So I'm like, well, everyone else is taking 10 days to get recovered from that, and I've taken 4 days. So it's like still sucked, but it's like by having a high level of immune function and having a high level of health as a baseline, it means that you can recover faster from these things. It doesn't make you invincible the same way as in the strength and conditioning industry. It's like you can never truly prevent an injury, but you can have the best physical preparation possible to minimize the chance of injury. And when you do get injured, generally you recover faster than someone who's poorly conditioned. So the goal is always just to try and optimize and increase your capacity, your energy output, your recovery capacity, your vitality, all these things as high as possible, so you're more resilient as a human.
That's good too, because it gives you that other side of it as well. Like not just the overall wellness, but also the recovery too. Because if you get sick, you're really able to bounce back a lot quicker. Because it can take people like a week or two to start feeling great again. Maybe some people it's 3 or 4 weeks, but by really looking after yourself, you really are able to get yourself to a point where you feel healthy on a day-to-day basis, but then also you're able to recover quicker in times when you become sick. But do you find that, I guess, the value of wanting to sustain good health, do you find like a lot of people find a challenge that in today's day and age because there's not enough high of a value to have, I guess, overall good health?
So again, sorry, cut out a bit.
Oh, so my question is like, because I feel like to have good health, you gotta have like it's gotta be in one of your top values in life to obtain good health. Do you find a
Yeah.
lot of people have challenges with that? And if they do, especially in your work, how have you worked with people to, I guess, get health and their values if that's something you work with?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's like it's not going to be everyone's number one value. Obviously, not something I realized. I worked as a personal trainer for 8 years and as an osteopath for 5, and being in that industry, it's like you realize pretty fast that not everyone wants to be in a gym 24/7. As much as you love going to the gym and being around the gym, it's like a lot of my clients just hate the gym and they want what the gym gives them. So I think similar to when I was in the gym as a PT, it's like just kind of understanding that okay, number one is not their highest value. That's okay. Don't try and force that on someone. Number one, because you're never going to do it. It's like your mum telling you to clean your room. The more she tells you, the more just want to tell her to fuck off. So you got to kind of accept it, respect it, be a bit savvy with how you can connect, find out what their values are, find out what their priorities are. So the task I always just do is like you'd write out your top 5 values and then you write out your top 5 priorities and you see if there was a disconnect. And it's like an NLP activity you can do. It's really powerful because most people will go, oh, no, the gym's my number one priority. I want to lose weight. I'm like, all right, I want you to write down what your number one priorities are. Look where you spend most of your time during the week. And most people will put, work, family, maybe 1 or 2 other things, and then gym comes up and it's number 5. But they've told me that gym's their number one priority. It's like, well, hey, you just told me that gym's your number one priority, but according to your priorities you've written out, it's actually number 5, and but you think it's number 1. So you can see the disconnect. And once you create that and show them that disconnect, it's like, oh shit, okay. So we do that. I do that on purpose with people to kind of take the pressure off, because then they're like, okay, well, this was your number 1 priority. We get results in 3 months. If it's going to be number 5 priority, doesn't make you a bad person. Completely fine. Your family being first, your business being first is cool. You're not a bodybuilder. You don't get paid to compete. It's fine. That's number 5. But are you okay with the results maybe taking 6 months or 12 months and going a little bit slower? And straight away, that's great to take pressure off people, because now they're not beating themselves up like, oh, it's 6 weeks in and I haven't lost much weight or haven't, gained much muscle. So I think that's the first thing. And then the second thing from a coach point of view is then realigning what their values are and linking that back to health. So like I work with a lot of business owners, entrepreneurs, where if I said the word gut health and neurotransmitters, they're like, dude, I don't give a fuck. Like, why do I care about this? But if I can link it back, and I've had to get really savvy with this and go, cool, well, how can I make gut health and neurotransmitters sexy to someone who doesn't care about health? And that's where it's like, well, if their number one value is making money or providing for their family or living, an amazing lifestyle where they can travel and do all these things, it's like, cool, well, if you don't care about your health, and your health is the thing that's going to provide you energy. If you don't have much energy, how productive are you going to be? If you're not very productive, how well is your business going to go? If your business isn't going well, how much money are you going to make? If you're not making much money, how are you going to provide for your family? If you can't provide for your family, what's that going to mean for you? It's like, so if we can connect it in a way of like making health connect to their values, and that's, I find a way where you can make it more of a priority for them. It's still not going to change their values, but we can start to bump it up the priority list from number 5, maybe to number 3. And then that's when you can start to get more buy-in, faster results, and make people who don't care about health start to care about health.
That's awesome too, because I feel like, because everyone that I feel like has a value for it, it's just finding how you can attach it to the value, because it will rather increase their love life, whether it's sex, it can increase their business, whether it's money, it can increase whatever it is. But health attaches to everything that we do in life. It just depends on how we frame it and what we attach it to.
Yeah, 100%. It's just reframing, reattaching, and I'd say slight manipulation, but positive manipulation.
Yeah, all for the greater good.
Yeah. It's positive manipulation to try and make you a bit healthier and live longer and make more money, have better sex, look good naked, have more energy, all the good things in life.
Like you said too, I think like the whole point of making it more sexy to the person is so important, man, because when I first started to like try and get more healthy foods into me, I didn't know what to do. So I started blending up like kale and lettuce and drinking it. I was absolutely hating it, and it pushed me further away from wanting to do the healthy things because I didn't understand it. But then when I started to seek the information and found that there's actually like very tasty ways and very sexy ways to be healthy, that's when I became more attracted to it. But it was just I needed my frame of mind to see it in a different light.
Yeah, man, I think you knocked it on the head there. Like, honestly, the biggest thing is education. It's just, yeah, like I think since I've been around for so long in the industry, it's like I kind of take a lot of it for granted. But every day I'm humbled when I speak to a client who's like, "Oh, I can eat this," and you're like, "Oh shit, I forget." Like, it's just stuff's still there's still a lot of misinformation out there, and a lot of people who think, yeah, you got to smash broccoli and kale and green smoothies and detox teas and low calorie diets and all these things. So I think, obviously, a big thing of what I'm trying to do is trying to educate, because I think the more you can educate people and like show them rather than tell them, is the sign of a good educator, a good teacher. Then you can start to get people to have more buy-in. Like, even I'd say most of my clients when they start, they think exactly what you said, and then after a few months, it's like, hey man, I'm showing you how to eat pizza and burgers and all these things. Obviously, like homemade and good quality ingredients. Not telling them to go eat Macca's, but like, there's ways that we can start to make food delicious, still hit our micronutrients, still hit our macros, use good quality ingredients, feel good, look good, lose weight, all the things at the same time. So, and once you realize that, it's like you've seen the Matrix and you can't go back. And you'll never want to eat shit food again. Like, I never want to go eat Macca's again, because I know how I can go home and make my homemade burger, which tastes 10 times better, and it's made of good quality ingredients, hits my macros, hits my micros, and I won't feel like shit the next day. And it doesn't cost me $12.
Yeah, and you're still hungry after it, because I think a lot
Yeah,
of
pretty
the
much.
foods out there, like you can eat and be filled up, but you're still nutrient deprived, so you still feel hungry even though your body's like full on bloated.
Yeah, it's a super interesting one, I'd say. Like, obviously, we both get it, but say for people first starting their journey, it's like, yeah, when you start eating nutrient dense foods, like, it makes sense. Like, you eat nutrient dense foods where your body can actually extract the energy from it. You eat 2 or 3 quality meals a day and you feel full for 4 to 6 hours. You can eat a massive, KFC bucket, or McDonald's meal, or Guzman and Gomez, and it's a big burrito, but an hour and a half later, you're hungry again. It's like, well, it was still 1,000 calorie burrito. Why do I feel hungry when I've just had 1,000 calories and 700 grams of food? So it's like, it's not really nutrient dense food. Yeah, it might have good calories and good macros on paper, but your body doesn't really care about the calories and macros. It cares about your ability to actually absorb that food and use that food as energy and convert it into ATP. So I think that's like a whole another segue into a different topic in the industry, is like, where we have this half the industry is kind of like, all that matters is calories, and it's like you can eat whatever you want as long as you're eating calories and macros. And then there's the other side of the industry, which is like, you eat some heavy metals, you're going to die. I think obviously there's somewhere in the middle where it's like, the 95%, 95-5 rule, which is my modification of the 80-20 rule, where it's like, obviously you try and get most of your food from high quality ingredients, single use ingredients, not buying processed foods, packaged foods, eating chemicals and additives and all this shit that we obviously know is not good for us. Also, not being scared that you're gonna, lose all your gains if you do eat Maccas every now and then. But also not thinking that, hey, if I'm just hitting my macros and my protein, I can eat whatever I want, because I always say, calories will determine your weight, macros will determine, how you look, and micros will determine how you feel. So we want to be making sure that, yeah, you eat enough food to nourish your body. Eat enough protein for brain health. Amino acids are made from protein. You eat enough protein for gut health. Collagen lines our gut from protein. Protein is essential for everything in our body. So making sure you hit enough protein in your diet, making sure you have enough fats in your diet for hormone function, enough carbs in your diet. Carbs, glucose is your main fuel source for your brain. But then looking into micros, making sure, like what you said before, are you having enough vitamin B and vitamin C, vitamin D? Are you having enough of these essential nutrients? So it's looking at everything. It's never one thing. It's always a combination, and being able to tick all the boxes, but not also be dogmatic about the approach and sit in one camp and then think the other camp's wrong. I think that's where social media makes it a bit of a minefield when you look at nutrition and anything health related, really.
100%. Like in every field as well, like it's hard to know what information to go to, because one people waving one flag, the others waving the other flag, and they're so against each other. Like a good example is veganism and carnivorism. They're two complete opposites, but there's no middle ground for them both. For like people to really
Yeah.
source information what may be true. But yeah, I agree with you on that point. And you also answered my question as well. I was about to ask you about the 80-20 rule, but you're already ahead of me.
I think my advice would be, if you like anyone who has an extreme view, is a red flag in my opinion. I think when you're looking at health advice or anything in life, health, business, I think whenever someone's like super extreme and dogmatic about like something's right and this is the only way to do it, to me, that's a red flag. I think all the best practitioners, best coaches in the world have the ability to say, like if you ask them, it's usually, it depends. Is it this, or this? Like they'll ask you 5 or 6 follow-up questions, to that question. It's never oh, this is the best way to do it. If anyone ever asks me, what do you think about veganism? Like, all right, depends. What's your background? What's your diet? Can you show me your bloods? Why are you thinking about going vegan? Like, there's 6 or 7 follow-up questions. There's never, oh, veganism shit, you should eat meat, or vice versa. Because for the right person, a vegan diet might be great. For the wrong person, vegan diet might be wrong. And that's where it's, there's keto, there's carnivore, there's intermittent fasting, there's a million different diets, the same way there's a million different exercises in the gym, and there's a million different programs as well. So I think there's a lot of different methods, but how well you can understand the principles behind those methods and like the biochemistry, the physiology of what's actually happening, the better decisions you can make. If you're just choosing shit, it's like everything works and everything doesn't. Just depends on the person, the dosage, the timing, the frequency, and making sure it's a good match for that person. So picking the right poison, essentially. I forgot what the next question was. 80-20 rule?
Yeah, 80-20 rule, yep.
As an exhibit A of me going on a tangent. But only taking us 36 minutes to go on a tangent. That's going to be a record. Yeah, but 80-20 I think 80-20 rule is definitely a good rule. I'm a little bit more anal. It's just me. It's not, you don't have to follow my rule. I think if 80-20 rules works for you, then awesome. I don't think anyone's out there measuring, percentages. It's kind of just a general thing. If obviously have a little bit of fun, but most of the time be good, which I think is a good rule to live by. I love an almond croissant on a Sunday. I love going to Yochi every now and then and smashing a bit of healthy yogurt with all the, I love how they say it's healthy yogurt, but then when I go to the front, I put on like half a kilo of all these toppings and sauces. I'm like, I'm going to do
unhealthy.
Yeah, exactly. Good marketing though. They tell you it's healthy, then you come there and absolutely destroy it.
But, Biscoff sauce.
Yeah, pretty much. I'm like, look at my organic yogurt, and then Biscoff there. Yeah. So I think 80-20. I think it's more of a mental thing rather than a physical thing. Because I always look at it like when I say 95-5, I go, if I was to own a Maserati, would I put 91 in it 20% of the time?
No.
And the answer is no. So it's like if you think of your body, and this just comes to a values thing. It's like it's a trade-off. Yeah, it's always all right. Well, to me, my highest value is health and performance. Like I want to be dialed in every area. I want to dominate business. I want to have a nice physique. I want to, have energy to do all the things I want to do. Like, so to me, when it comes to making decisions on a day-to-day life, it's like, cool. I know that tastes really good and I know I love it. And I would love to smash a hamburger and love to smash an almond croissant every day and, all those good foods. But when I go to have that, when I get in that situation, it's a trade-off of me. Well, what's the benefit right now? What's that going to give me? And what's the opportunity cost? I think opportunity cost is a big thing that I always think of is opportunity cost for those listening. If they don't know, is basically what's the cost of that decision going to create essentially. So yeah, you can choose to eat that, but it's not just what you're choosing, it's what you're not choosing in the process. So yeah, I'm going to choose that as a byproduct of that. I'm going to have less energy, maybe I'm going to be bloated, maybe I'm not going to feel so good that day. So to me, it's like, is the 2 minutes of eating the almond croissant really worth not being at my peak performance that day? And to me, based off my values, it doesn't align, so it's an easy decision. For someone else, that might not be the case. They might want to enjoy it. It doesn't make you a bad person. That's completely fine. And I guess it's just dialing that up and down depending on what your values are. And to me, because my highest value is health and performance, it's like 95% of the time I say no, I don't do it. Every now and then I do it. For a lot of my clients, their values aren't as high. Health's not as high for them, so they tend to be a bit more loose and they tend to have things more often. They still get good results. It's probably a little bit slower and it's probably not as high as it could be. But if that's more sustainable for them, I'm always going to choose sustainability over them going 95-5 but only being able to do it for 3 months. So I think it's just finding what works for you and what's a good level where you can still perform at the level required that you're satisfied with, while still having enough fun in life where you don't feel like you're missing out and then you're going to just go binge anyway.
I think that's key what you said there. Like find what works for you, because like for me, because I don't think it's one thing works for everyone. And like for me, I love intermittent fasting. So I like doing 16-8. I feel like personally it helps me feel more optimal. But my pregnant wife, I'm not going to suggest her, but like, no, you can't eat until 12 o'clock. Like, like for her, when she wakes up, she's craving like bacon and eggs and she eats that and she feels great. And then, I feel like you said, you got to do what works best for you.
That might be dangerous for your safety if you tell it to fast.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
That must be.
I'm not game enough for that.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think look, that's where it comes. I think as a practitioner, you've got to look at it. I always look at it as three circles, like imaginary, graph on the screen right now, like pie charts. Like, you've got evidence-based research, what the literature says, what the science says, and for sure, you should be up to date on what the research says. Also factor in that research usually comes out 10 or 20 years after the thing actually happened. So you also got to have an open mind. So I think there's evidence-based research. What does it say? Then there's practitioner experience, anecdotal experience, which is technically the lowest form of evidence in the scientific hierarchy. But again, if you look at someone who's been doing something for 20, 30 years and has worked with thousands of people and they're getting amazing results consistently, it's probably just a case of the science hasn't caught up yet, and that person's probably onto something. So I think anecdotal experience is definitely super powerful as well. You don't want to be that physio or that practitioner who's like, well, there's no evidence that says the sun's going to come up, so we're not going to do it. It's like, we know enough at this point in time that we can probably, put two and two together. So I think those are the first two pillars. And then the third pillar is what you just said there, which is like input from the client, like actually listening to your clients. Because I can go, cool, well, science says that intermittent fasting isn't right for you and blah, 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 blah. And all my patients I've worked with don't do well on intermittent fasting, but then you do intermittent fasting and you're like, bro, I feel the best I've ever felt. So it's like, am I going to come in as a practitioner and go, well, the evidence says that you shouldn't be doing this? Or am I going to say, hey, if that works for you and you're feeling good, awesome. I'm not going to be a dick about it and put my own bias onto it. So I think the best practitioners have the ability to work in all those three circles and go, what's the client telling me? What's their feedback? Actually listen to the client. Don't just be, sort of what's the word? Like oh, I've lost the word. Don't be like, don't have like the boss dynamic where you're just trying to
Oh
like
yeah, okay,
control
yeah.
and dominate. Authority, authoritarian essentially. You want to work with people and always be collaborative rather than an authoritarian approach, and that's what I think works best. Like every time I work with clients, like I'll say, this is what I think is going to work best based off my experience and the evidence. What do you think? Is this achievable for you? Do you think this is sustainable for you? Because I'd rather than tell me straight up, hey bro, I'm not going to do this, or I don't want to eat that, or I can't see myself doing this. It's like, cool. Well, this is the 100% plan. If I was to change these two things, it's still 80% effective, but 80% effective over 6 months is better than 100% effective over 4 weeks. So let's have that conversation, be transparent, and just tell me what you're going to do and what you're not going to do so we can make a plan together collaboratively. And then over the next 6, 12 months, we can really dial in. And if you can do that with people, yes, your results will be significantly better than just being the authoritarian, physio or GP that just tells you this is the way it is. You have to do this. Otherwise, see you later.
Because it is a collaboration, isn't it? And I don't feel like, especially like if I'm the one coming to you for support and guidance and help, like not hiding things from you either, because then I'm not going to get the results that you're structuring for me to get because I'm doing sneaky things that I'm not admitting as well. So I feel like both ends have to come together and collaborate and be open and honest. Whether the honest truth can hurt sometimes, but at the end of the day, it's for the better good.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's just kind of create that environment of safety. It's like a relationship. It's any relationship. If you're going to come to me and tell me something, and I roast you or make you feel bad or guilty or shame about it, then you're not going to tell me about it, and it's going to be a lose-lose because I think you're doing the things you're doing. You're not doing the things you're doing. You're not going to get a result. If you're not getting the results, then you're not satisfied. If you're not satisfied, then you're not going to stick around. So it's like now it's bad business for me because my clients aren't getting results and my clients are leaving, and it's bad for you because you're not getting the result and you've just wasted your time and money, and it's a lose-lose. So to me, yeah, the authoritarian approach doesn't really make sense because it's literally just a lose-lose in most scenarios versus being a human, being more of a collaborative approach, kind of meeting someone on their level and not having that hierarchy of like, I'm the practitioner, I'm better. It's like, cool, I'm the practitioner, you're the client, but let's just have a chat. Here's what I think will be best. What do you think about that? Awesome. You can come to me and tell me if you fuck up and eat chocolate on the weekend. You're a human, that's cool. Happens to me too. Let's just move on. Make an adjustment to the plan. Life will go on. You won't die. You won't put on 10 kilos. It's happy. It's all good.
Yeah. No, that's awesome, man. I want to, I'm cautious of time here. So I want to transition to this other topic that I had in mind because I've seen the impact it's had on myself, but I've seen the impact it's had on the people around me. I want to get your thoughts
Mm,
on it. So it's getting a clean water source. So like drinking
mm,
clean water, filtered water. And for myself, like I started ordering Montville spring water to get delivered to my house every fortnight. And ever since I started drinking it, I've got two people that live with me. I've got my wife and my best mate. And I eventually got them onto it. And then now all of us say every time we drink tap water, like we physically feel sick. Just like going back to it. But say about a year ago when I was drinking tap water normally, like it just tastes normal. I didn't realize like how bad it actually was for my health. So could you
Yeah.
please just talk to us about like the importance of getting like a clean water source?
Yeah, you've become a water snob. Welcome to the club.
Yeah. Or
That's
water
it.
connoisseur.
Yeah, once you get in there, you can't go back. It's a one-way door. So yeah, I mean, obviously super important in terms of making sure we have a good water source. So, I mean, on average, just, most people are drinking 2-3 liters of water a day. So times that by 365. The average person is drinking 750 to 1,000 liters of water a day. So that's a lot of water that you're consuming. So it sounds like a 1%er, but when you look at it that way, it's actually quite significant. So I always say three things that are really important for humans. Number one, make sure we breathe properly. You breathe 20,000 times a day. You walk 10,000 steps a day, so make sure you know how to move properly, breathe properly, and your water is really important too because we're drinking a lot of water. So three things that you can really easily take control over. So when it comes to water, unfortunately, there's a lot of research and evidence showing that water is highly contaminated, especially in Australia and America. Things like heavy metals, PFAs, PFOAs. So PFAs and PFOAs are things that are known as forever chemicals. They're in like your non-stick pans and Teflon, things like that. So there's been lots of research showing these kind of things in our water, as well as things like herbicides, pesticides, and glyphosate, which all these things have been shown to be endocrine disrupting, so affect our hormones, be carcinogenic, which is promote cancer, and highly inflammatory. So a lot of negatives, obviously. So having a good quality water filter where we can remove all of the nasty things and have maximum amount of minerals essentially with the least amount of chemicals is going to be desirable. So in terms of how it would work from a water filter perspective, that's a question I get a lot of times. There's a whole spectrum of water filters, and the easiest way to think of it is the spectrum of water filters is basically just what like with the filter, what's the size of the micron essentially. So the micron is basically like what's the size that filter is going to filter out. So for example, you've got a fridge filter, you've got like a jug you can get. Some people have like portable water bottles, and all these water filters are obviously better than drinking tap water, and they're going to filter to a degree, but a lot of them are still going to miss out on a lot of these smaller chemicals, which can still get through the filtration system. So the easy way to think about it is like, let's say your filter is that big. Anything that's bigger than that is not going to get in, but that still allows for all of these small chemicals, small toxins, and small, things to get through into your drinking water. So the only water filtration system that can remove 99.9% of all these chemicals, toxins, pollutants is something called reverse osmosis water. So reverse osmosis basically strips out all of the chemicals, the herbicides, pesticides, all the things I talked about before. It'll also strip out all the minerals though. So it'll strip out things like magnesium, potassium, sodium, things that are really important for us to consume. So what you ideally want in a nutshell, like super fast cheat sheet, is number one, we have a good filtration system. So reverse osmosis is the gold standard there. A lot of companies do it. If you're in Gold Coast, there's a company called PureFlow, and they do this. Otherwise, Puro is a brand you can buy in Woolies and Coles. It's like 70 cents a liter, super cheap, and it's reverse osmosis. The second step is we want to put the minerals back in. So step one, we take all the bad stuff out. Step two, we want to put the minerals back in, because drinking unmineralized water is not just as bad, but drinking unmineralized water will actually dehydrate you more because we don't have the salt and the electrolytes to actually absorb the water into our cells. So step two is we want to put the minerals back in. So if you are getting a water filter, or you're purchasing water off a company, you want to make sure they put the minerals back in. If they haven't, like that Puro company I mentioned, that from Woolworths, they don't put any minerals back in. Something simple you can do is add in some Celtic sea salt, some lemon, maybe an electrolyte supplement, just to put those minerals back in. So we are drinking mineralized water. And the third thing, which is kind of a bonus, it's not essential. There's a lot of research coming out about hydrogen water, which has been shown to lower inflammation, which is really, really beneficial for obviously a lot of health concerns. And again, some companies will do that, but it's not an essential thing. And it's one of those things where you want to look at it at the end of the road. Sometimes some of these companies, there's one in particular where it's like, we'll hydrogenate your water. But it's like if you're hydrogenating water that's still full of chemicals, you can't like putting makeup on a pig. So we want to make sure it's filtration is number one priority, putting the minerals back in, and then bonuses after that, like hydrogen water or the Kangen water machines, things like that, which are marketed really big. It's like they're end of the food chain, after you've had good quality filtration.
Awesome, man. Like My biggest takeaway from this episode is invest in your health. You know, like for my water, it cost me about $50 a fortnight to get 60 liters of it, but it's made massive changes in my life making that investment, $50 a fortnight. And I think in every other aspect in our lives, I think it's so important that we do make that investment. So just want to say, Dan, thank you for your time today. And I'd also like to give you the opportunity before we finish here to have the stage or have the floor to share a final message or anything that on your mind that you'd like to share.
So much on my mind, eh? No, I think my main thing would just be, yeah, obviously, um, prioritizing your health, putting your health not first. Your health is going to be your health is your wealth. It's the most important thing that you have. If you don't focus and put time into it, it'll catch up with you later. So I think it might seem like an expense. It might seem like you don't have time, but it's something I would definitely say is going to have a good return on investment. Every dollar you put into your health, every minute you put into your health is going to give you five back 10, 20 years down the track. So make sure you make time or you'll have problems later, and we don't want that.
Amen. Daniel, thank you for your time.
You're welcome, mate. Thanks for having me.